Have you ever just looked at a forest or a pond or heck, even a puddle and just wondered, how does all that work? Well, today we are cracking open one of the biggest, most important concepts in environmental science, the ecosystem. We're going to deconstruct it piece by piece so you can absolutely nail any question that comes your way. Let's dive in. So, to get us started, I've got a little riddle for you. First, picture a huge, vast, scorching desert. Got it? Okay, now picture a single drop of pond water teeming with microscopic life. I mean, they couldn't be more different, right? But what if I told you they share something absolutely fundamental? What on earth could connect those two completely different worlds?
And the answer is they are both ecosystems. That's the big secret. An ecosystem is simply where life meets its environment. It's a whole community of living things, we call those the biotic parts, all interacting with the non-living stuff around them. The abiotic things like water, sunlight, and rocks. It's that constant give and take that makes it a system.
Okay, so part one, let's talk about structure. Think of it like we're popping the hood on a car. Before we can understand how it drives, we've got to get familiar with all the parts inside, right? What are the building blocks that make an ecosystem tick? And it's actually beautifully simple. Every single thing inside an ecosystem, and I mean everything, can be sorted into just one of two categories. You've got your biotic components. That's all the living or once living stuff. We're talking plants, animals, fungi, bacteria, the whole shebang. And then you have the abiotic components. That's the non-living physical stuff like sunlight, soil, water, and temperature. So let's zoom in on that living, that biotic side of things. It's got three main players. First, you have the producers. These are the absolute powerhouses, like plants, that make their own food using sunlight. Then you've got the consumers. That's us and other animals, who get their energy by eating other organisms. And last but not least, you have the ecosystem's cleanup crew, the decomposers. Think fungi and bacteria. They break down all the dead material, which is a super important job. And on the other side, the abiotic side, you've got the physical stage where this whole drama of life plays out. This is the sunlight that fuels the producers, the water that every living thing needs to survive, the soil that's packed with nutrients, and the overall climate, temperature and atmosphere. These non-living things basically write the rules of the game for what kind of life can even exist there. Okay, so we've got the parts list down. That's the structure. But just knowing what a carburetor and a piston are doesn't tell you how a car actually moves. So what does an ecosystem do? Well, that brings us to its function, how it all works together.
And look, if you're studying for an exam, this is it. This is the slide. You really only need to lock in two main jobs, two core functions of any ecosystem. Number one, energy flow. And number two, nutrient cycling. If you can get the difference between these two, you're absolutely golden.
So first up, energy. Here's the most important thing you have to remember about it. Energy flows in a one-way direction. It's like a one-way street. It all starts from the sun. Producers, our plants, are the only ones who can grab that solar energy and turn it into food. Then a consumer, say a rabbit, eats the plant, and that energy gets passed on. Eventually, when things die, decomposers get involved. But that energy doesn't go back to the sun. It flows through the system, and a lot of it is eventually lost as heat.
Okay, so if energy is a one-way street, then you can think of nutrients as being on a roundabout. They just go round and round. The actual building blocks of life, we're talking carbon, nitrogen, all that good stuff, they don't just get used up and disappear. Oh no, they get used and recycled in a continuous, never-ending loop. This is the single biggest difference between the two functions and a super common exam question.
And that journey, that loop, it all kicks off right here. The plants, our producers, acts like tiny miners. They pull up all those essential nutrients from the soil and the water, and they build them into their own bodies, into their leaves and stems. Next up, of course, the consumers get involved. Animals get these nutrients not by digging in the dirt, but by eating the plants, or by eating other animals who ate the plants. See how those nutrients are getting passed along, moving up the food chain?
And here it is, the grand finale, where the loop closes. When those plants and animals die, the decomposers, that cleanup crew, get to work. They break down all that complex dead stuff, and bam, they return the simple, raw nutrients right back into the soil, making them available for the plants to use all over again. It is literally the planet's ultimate recycling program.
So, we've talked about structure, we've talked about function. That's a lot of theory, right? So let's make it real. let's apply everything we've learned to a concrete example so you can see how it all fits together. All right, check it out. Let's take a simple forest. The biotic or living parts? Easy. The trees, the squirrels, the mushrooms. The abiotic, non-living stuff? That's the sunlight, the rain, the rocks. Now, what about the function? Well, energy flows in a straight line, from the sun to the oak tree, which makes food, and then to the squirrel when it eats an acorn. But the nutrients, they cycle. When leaves fall from that tree, mushrooms, our decomposers, break them down, putting the nutrients back in the soil for the tree to use again next year. See, structure and function right there. Okay, we have covered a ton of ground. So let's pause and boil this all down to the absolute must-know essentials. This is what you need to walk away with, especially if you've got a test on the horizon. This right here is your exam bulletin, your ultimate cheat sheet. If you remember nothing else, remember this. Structure is what it's made of, the living and non-living parts. Function is what it does, how energy and nutrients move. The biggest mistake people make is getting these next two mixed up, so listen close. Energy flows in one direction. Nutrients cycle in a loop. Say it with me, energy flows, nutrients cycle. Get that right, and you have just nailed the core concept of how every single ecosystem on Earth works. So there you have it. That's the blueprint for pretty much any ecosystem. But knowing how it's supposed to work is one thing. The real question to chew on is, now that you get this delicate balance, this flow of energy, and this intricate cycle of nutrients, how are our human activities messing with it? How are we changing both the structure and the function of these vital systems? That's a huge question, and it's exactly why understanding this stuff is more important than ever. Thanks for joining this explainer.